Ancient Greek architecture. There were three main styles of early Greek architecture: the Doric, the Corinthian, and the Ionic. The Doric style was more formal and austere, whereas the Ionic was more relaxed and decorative. The Corinthian was a more ornate, later development of the Ionic. The Doric style was rather sturdy, and its top or capital was plain. This style was used in mainland Greece. An example of the Doric order is the Parthenon. The Ionic style was thinner and more elegant. Its capital was decorated with scroll-like designs. This style was found in eastern Greece and the islands. Examples of this are the Erechtheum, the Temple of Apollo at Didymia, and the Temple of Athena Nike. The Corinthian style was more commonly used in Roman temples, but it was used in Greece occasionally. Its capital was very elaborate and decorated with leaves and other designs. Examples of this are the Temple of Apollo at Bas. There are many Acropolises in Greece, but the one in Athens is the best known. The Acropolis is mainly dedicated to the goddess. The Parthenon, the Temple of Athena Nike, the Temple of Athena, the Propylaea, the Old Temple, and many others.
Greek fashion. Clothing in ancient Greece was loose-fitting. Both men and women typically wore sleeveless tunics. The women's tunics were usually ankle-length, while the men's were shorter. For the common person, the color of cloth was plain. Those with the financial resources had their clothing dyed in various colors. During the winter, a heavy wool cloak was worn for warmth. Greeks went barefoot or wore sandals outside the home. Inside the home, they went barefoot. Clothing was made by the women at home. It was the mother's responsibility to make the clothing, with the help from her daughters or from slaves employed. The main cloth used in ancient Greek clothing was wool. Different plants or herbs were used to dye clothing, such as oak bark, dried wood leaves, stalks of wood, and there were many more. For footwear, sandals were most popular. They were made out of leather which had been soaked in a water and urine mixture so that they were waterproof. Hairstyles in ancient Greece also changed over time. In the early days of Greece, men normally wore their hair short and grew beards. During the Hellenistic era, beards went out of style. Long hair was typical for Greek women. Only slave women would wear their hair short. Women curled and braided their hair in early Greece. Later the style was to tie their hair back or put it up into a bun. Makeup was used in ancient Greece. Rich women stayed indoors most of the day. Pale skin was a fashionable and sign of prestige. Women applied white lead, which was toxic to their faces to lighten their complexion. Chalk was also used to lighten their complexion, but it wore off quickly. Connected eyebrows were also fashionable. So women decorated their eyes with dark powder. Red powder was also applied to their cheeks.
Ancient Greek food. The gods
gods had all sorts of religious meanings. The Greeks, to begin with, never ate meat unless it had been sacrificed for a god or had been hunted in the wild. They believed that it was wrong to kill and eat a tame domestic animal without sacrificing it to the gods. Even with vegetables, many Greeks believed that particular foods were cleaner or dirtier, or that certain gods liked certain foods better than others. For example, some gods would not eat beans or bread. The Greeks ate mainly wheat, barley, and millet, wine, and olive oil. They also grew vegetables, especially lentils, beans, peas, and chickpeas. Possibly they ate more fish, also because of their feelings about sacrificing meat. They may have eaten meat less than other people did. The Greek diet consisted of foods that were easily raised in a rocky terrain of Greek landscape. Breakfast was eaten just after sunrise and consisted of bread dipping in wine. Lunch was again bread dipping in wine along with some olives, figs, cheese, or dried fish. Supper was the main meal of each day. It was eaten near sunset. It consisted of vegetables, fruit, fish, and possibly honey cakes. Sugar was unknown to ancient Greeks, so natural honey.
Ancient Greek gods and goddesses. Zeus. He rules the sky and is the supreme leader on Mount Olympus. His symbols are the scepter, the eagle, and his age. Hera. She is the goddess of marriage and childbirth. Her symbols are the diadem and veil, showing that she is Zeus's bride. Demeter. She was the goddess of vegetation and agriculture. She was especially associated with corn. Hades. He was the god of the underworld, the realm of the dead. His symbols were his helmet, metals, and jewels. Poseidon. He was the god of the sea, of earthquakes, and of horses. He was often seen with his trident, a weapon capable of creating sudden, violent storms. Hestia. She was a goddess of the home and the hearth. She eventually gave up her Olympian throne to Dionysus to keep peace. Aphrodite. She was a goddess of love, beauty, and eternal youth. Her symbols were the girdle, the seashell, the mirror, and the dove. Apollo. He was a god of the sun, the light, the music, and the prophecy. His symbols are the lyre, the tripod, the laurel tree, and the navel stone. Artemis. She was the goddess of hunting and of the wild. Her symbols are the stag and the moon. Athena. She was a goddess of wisdom, war, and crafts. Her symbols are the owl, her shield, and an olive branch. Persephone. She was a goddess and queen of the underworld, of spring growth and innocence. She was abducted by Hades to be his wife. Dionysus. He was a god of wine, vegetation, and ecstasy. His symbols included the thyros, which was a pine cone-tipped staff, drinking cup, leopard, and fruiting vine. Ares. He was the god of war, civil order, and manly courage. His symbols were the spear and the helmet. Hermes. He was the god of roads, travel, trade, thievery, and language. His
Ancient Greek festivals. Festivals were a very important part of life in ancient Greece and were a central part of worshiping the gods. They usually included a procession and a sacrifice. Festivals also included various competitions, which were seen as another way to honor a god. There were competitions in poetry, athletics.
The most important festivals of ancient Greece involve athletic competition, such as the Olympic Games, which are held in honor of Zeus.
The games are once again underway and the athletes brim with the hope of victory. But before any events take place, the competitors, their fathers and trainers, must swear an oath to Zeus that they have trained for 10 months and that they will obey the rules. They gather in the council building before the statue of Zeus. After the athletes have sworn their oath, they make sacrifice to Zeus at one of the altars placed around the outer. The outer sacred area of the site of Olympia contained the temples of Zeus and Hera. The competitors had some time to relax before the contest began. With family and friends, they stroll around the sanctuary. There are many sights to take in. The most important and impressive building is the Temple of Zeus, where there is a huge gold and ivory statue of the god, one of the 7 wonders of the world. After that, they will enjoy the sight of the chariot races, wrestling, and many more. The games are then over. But tomorrow, athletes, the trainers and families, and the spectators will start the journey home. But before that, the sanctuary of Olympia is filled with the sounds of feasting and singing, as banquets and parties take place and people relive the glorious achievements of the Olympic Games.
The Spartans. The Sparta family was quite different from that of other ancient Greek city-states. The word Sparta has come down to use to describe self-denial and simplicity. This is what Sparta life is all about. Children were children of the state more than of their parents. They were raised to be soldiers, loyal to the state, strong and self-disciplined. The life of a Spartan male was a life of discipline, self-denial, and simplicity. The Spartans viewed themselves as the true inheritors of the Greek tradition. They did not surround themselves with luxuries, expensive food, or opportunities for leisure. And this, I think, is the key to understanding the Spartans. While the Athenians and many others thought the Spartans were insane, the life of the Spartans seemed to hark back to more basic ways of life. Discipline, simplicity, and self-denial always remained ideals in the Greek and Roman worlds. Civilization was often seen as bringing disorder, weakness, and a decline in moral values. The Spartan, however, could point to Spartan society and argue that moral values and human courage and strength were as great as it was before civilization. The Spartan society then exercised a profound pull on the surrounding city-states who admired the simplicity, discipline, and order of the Spartan life.